determining what market rents are. I mean, this is crucial whether you're developing or acquiring assets in the space. I mean, in my opinion, it's the most crucial piece of data in my underwriting. Just build a sensitivity table and with various rents and just see how big a financial lever the actual rents are. So you model $16 a foot and find out that you only get 13, and you can just watch your returns dissipate, right? Model 13 and get 14, that's a win. I mean, that's good. That's kind of where you want to be. Model 13 and get 18 sounds like a huge win, but if you're raising money, you've just given your LPs a 35% return when you don't have to, right? So model correctly, I think is important to protect yourself from the downside and to retain as much of the deal as you can and not give, exponential returns to your investors when they don't want them. I mean, they just want a good, solid 20% return typically in a development, but you miss it by $3-4 a foot, you could be giving them 35%, which could have gone in your pocket for your efforts and your risk. So I think it's really important to get your rents correct. And I think the real challenge is in Small Bay, there just aren't enough quality rent comps out there, especially for new developments, right? So most existing Small Bay assets are older vintage and they're not really comparable, right? You have lower ceilings, you have smaller drive-in doors, smaller truck courts. So you just really don't have, the comparables that we need. So as you've heard me talk about in past calls, I'm in the process of developing 10 acres in Cincinnati. I can't find any rent comps. There are 3 in the Cincinnati area they put pretty renderings up. They're trying to ask astronomical rent amounts, and they haven't broken ground in the last 18, 24 months. I think in this space, you need to build and people want to move in quickly. Businesses want to move in quickly. So I don't think you can pre-lease in this space. So you have to get your rents right so you can build. So I reached out to Michael's team and they provided me the World Engine, which I hope Michael will talk about. And it's a great report that showed me what my rent should be. And their rent assumption was higher than I was going to assume. So that was good. I'm going to use mine in my underwriting and shoot for theirs, and hopefully I get a little upside on that. But now I have a good piece of data, solid rent data to take to my investors and my lender, which is very helpful in getting the best terms on both investors and lenders. So I think getting the best data, and I do think that Michael Tran from Flex Parks USA, I think they have the best data in the industry. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're based in DFW, but they'll play in any market. They know every market. They have data from every market. So if you're developing anywhere, feel free to reach out to them, and they should be able to help you. And they don't just do the data. I mean, they do feasibility studies. They do brokerage. They can help you make decisions on what to build, what not to build, what amenities to build. I mean, they're kind of a full service, again, focused in DFW, but they do national work as well. So feel free to reach out to Michael and his team. So I'll give the floor to Michael and let him take it from here. But look forward to the next 15, 20 minutes of Michael espousing us with great knowledge.
Well, thank you. When I started looking up, it was actually before I ever actually talked to you, but there was a gentleman that was looking to build up there, right? And we were running into the Rise Commercial Group, which is a different flex model up there. And if you guys don't know what Rise does, is their suites are not connected to the office space. So you have a unit, but you have an office space you rent to. And I've seen their stuff. They've expanded pretty quickly across the, where is it, Ohio? Now they're in Michigan, I think. They're all across the Northeast now.
Indiana,
yeah. And they have a good model, and they're building to a specific user. And with what I was seeing with them is the same problem with other people is, hey, we need to get this built, but also they could build storage. And I think what they're doing is the SBA loan model, because they're operating a park in that perspective, right? Whereas traditional small bay leasing, that's been the problem with every lender is where are your LOIs at? What's your pre-leasing like? Well, it's not going to exist in this asset class. And that's why not a lot of investors, developers have felt comfortable building this, because there isn't any pre-leasing done in flex space. You're 6 months out. before you even get your first call on this space. And so, Will touched on the World Engine, and that came from Cody and I going to a few conferences. People would have extra land, and they'd say, hey, here's this piece of land. Is this good for flex? Was the question. And we would get that over and over. And we were like, man, we don't know, right? But what we did have was sales data from our highest price per square foot sales and our lowest price per square foot sales. So we took all that data, we pulled demographics, and what we did was we found that certain things trigger higher rents, and certain things can also hurt you on the rental rate side too, right? And so one of those key things is in storage, you guys look for, higher renter ratio. Well, in flex, it's the exact opposite. So we're looking for a higher homeownership percentage because homeowners are spending repairs on their home. They're doing remodels. They're getting upgrades to the house. Pool companies, they thrive off of better demographics. And those are the guys who pay your mid to high teens rates plus triple net, right? And Thaddeus has heard me talk about this many times, but him mentioning, okay, let's get a World Engine done. What are some of the other main things that we're looking at? It's population growth, what's the incomes, and how many businesses are in that specific submarket. And so we're helping a group right now. They're dropping about 200,000 feet of flex across 30 acres, right? And what we had to do was we had to take a market and get businesses in that trade area. And when I mean trade area is it's very micro market specific. And so we're pulling 10, 15, and 25-minute drive business counts. And what that does is it helps you figure out how much square footage is currently on the ground versus how much is on the way versus, okay, here's how many businesses are there. And so tracking all those items helps you figure out, okay, is this area over or undersupplied? And the problem with flex is obviously it's very hard to figure out what's being built and how much is actually true small bay. And when I say like true small bay or flex, what you're seeing is on CoStar and city municipalities, you're seeing that they don't label flex all the same way. It's labeled miscellaneous commercial. It's labeled distribution. It's labeled R&D across all different platforms. There's not one uniform source. So it takes a lot of visualization and manual checking to make sure that this is actually your true square footage on the ground. And here's, okay, now how many businesses I can actually go after, right? And one thing in the last quarter we've really added to our World Engine is figuring out how many new LLCs were created in the last 2 years. And that's really important because I had to look it up before this call, but it's for June, the statistics for business formation stats or whatever it's called, they had 531,000 and some change new business applicants in the last month. Yeah, so you're looking at, okay, what do we do with all this data, right? And you're like, it has to be split up into two parts. And one is with the World Engine is just to figure out if the site is a good, fast yes or no to save you time to move on to the next one. But not everybody is in the Sun Belt. I think I looked at the school map. We're pretty evenly divided across the country. And I will say the Sun Belt gets a lot of attention, but Northeast, all of that up there, you guys have, what I'll start with the Northeast, right? Like you guys have not a lot of new product delivered in the last 10, 20, 30 years almost. And that's a function of land availability, topography issues. And then now you're left with land that's like, okay, what's the access like here? What's your parcel shape? And it is somewhat amenity driven because while it is important to have your amenities, you need to figure out, okay, what am I going to do different than what's already existing? And then how can I justify my rates and what's sustainable in these submarkets? And so you can find the baseline rates on, product that's going to be new in the Northeast, your Ohio's, your north of, let's see here. I've looked at stuff in Kansas, Michigan. You guys have the snow load factor. You have to account for a lot of different things up north that you wouldn't in the Sun Belt. And, determining that last new product delivered is very key, because sometimes there's a lot of pent-up demand in a market that you wouldn't know about. And that's when you see the market average like Thaddeus has seen. He's seen it in the 13s on market average. If you're using AI, Manus, Claude, whatever you want to use, please don't use those, because the problem you run into is it's essentially a wannabe tracked IQ or Radius Plus. And if you guys don't know what those two things are, that's the self-storage version of scrubbing rental rate data across whatever's available, right? Well, that's essentially what the AIs are doing. They're scrubbing data of what's posted online, but it's actually not your true rent. And so you have to dig in a little further. You have to go check your Facebook marketplaces. You have to go check and call, direct owners and say, hey, there's been many times I've called with my own family nail salon supply business. I know it's very cliche, but my family is in the nail salon business, and we need to find 2,000 to 10,000 square feet of Small Bay for distribution of nail salon products. And my cousin in that town does not speak English, so I'm the contact calling you randomly, right? And it's old school way, but it's the best way to get true rental rate data. And also figuring out, okay, if that's what this guy's getting for old 1980s product with gravel drives, then what would I get if I had brand new concrete, security, higher ceilings, a sales office, and restroom, like nice restroom that I would feel comfortable having an employee go to every day, right? And what we do is that's when we really track back in the demos. Okay, what's the disposable income in this market? And now we're looking at the average household income, and then adding in what is the median age in this market, and why does that matter, right? Well, because if you're in a retirement community and you're looking at, okay, what are these seniors spending their money on, even though they have good disposable income? Well, they're going to be fixing things at the house, things that they can't do anymore. So contractors, right? Well, contractors need side yard. Contractors need HVAC for their workshop. If they're building, they've got, clients coming in there looking at new fixtures. If they're selling, new granite countertops, have a sales floor, you got all these things you need to account for, because these older generation, they're not going to really fix stuff themselves. But if you go back 20 years and the average, the average age is about 40 years old, late 30s, what does that mean? Young families, right? Young families in a, decent average household income market, what are they spending their money on? Well, their kids, right? So if you're seeing kids are out there, well, everybody wants their kid to be the next D1 or pro athlete. So now you're thinking, okay, and we've seen here in our market, and I've seen in other markets, these tenants don't really have anywhere to go. Your F45, your fitness studios, yoga, you've got baseball, basketball, pickleball, volleyball training. My niece is doing volleyball, and she's going to almost every flex park I know in DFW that has a volleyball facility. And she's telling me, hey, we don't have AC in some of these. And it was 107 here yesterday. So it's just crazy to me to see that, okay, these guys are paying, we've seen one volleyball training facility take down over 10,000 feet and buy the building in a condo regime for themselves. Now we're seeing them pay mid-teens rent. Now I got a call from 30,000 square foot basketball user that has nowhere to go, and they're willing to pay. They were also mid-teens as well. So you're hovering 15 plus triple net for a basketball, volleyball training use. And now that opens up the different types of uses you're targeting for your submarket. So it sounds very vague about where I'm telling you to, place your rents, but it's because it is very micro market specific when you're looking at it from that perspective. And, when you look at the Sun Belt, the Carolinas, they haven't had anything built in a long time. And we normally see rates in the high teens plus triple net. And what's also interesting is we've seen stuff in Alabama, not a lot of new stuff delivered. Guess what? The online average rate that was being pulled was $12, $13 gross. And there's people there that if you really, really dig in, you're in the high teens, low 20s. I've seen low 20s plus utilities. I've seen high teens plus triple net in Birmingham or your Irondales or where else is there? There's another part of Alabama that's just getting insane rents, right? Where you just look and you're like, oh, this is a podunk town. All this flex is very junky and not something that looks attractive to build in. But I've seen world engines fail, in my opinion. I actually printed one out here. Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a military town. And you've got a population in a 5 mile at 80,000. That's a no for us. You usually like it in the 90s to 100,000 people. Annual growth was almost negative. You're at 0.4%. Average household income, 67,000 and some change. Median home value, this is important, 166,000. I don't remember houses being that low since I was, 16, almost 20 years ago. But total business count, 4,500 businesses. And your spending per capita, 9,000. We like to see that around 12,000. Home ownership in the low 40s, 43%, right? I had to override our model on this one because the square footage on the ground in this market was 346,000 feet. So there was a rental rate average for new flex being built out there at $16 plus nets. So that just goes to show there hasn't been supply, there is demand, but we run into that here, right, in the Sun Belt. Everybody that's on the call that's in Florida, what you guys are dealing with is a ton of people moving there. We get, I want to say Florida is probably our second highest world engine area of concentration. And one thing in the Sun Belt is not when the last new product was delivered, it's how much new product is being delivered and how do you find that, right? And it's a lot of permit tracking. It's a lot of, checking everything online, scrubbing data. It's a lot of those things, but finding that is going to be key to make sure that, because you don't have a lot of people building in the city where they're getting permits for this, usually, even in DFW, right? Luckily we are here and we get a lot of data just from being ear to the ground, but Florida has that coming up next. Is there's a lot of people that need Small Bay there, but you have to build different to the market. And, I would say Florida is very healthy on rates, so you don't have to worry because it's a very supply constrained market. It's very hard to build in. So it's not uncommon for us to see older 1980s product in that high teens plus triple net rate. It's just because it's so dense there, right? Like every time we do a world engine, there's a ton of population, there's a ton of business, and it's just finding those little pockets that don't have enough flex there. And where do you build it? You got to find the land. that pencils correctly. And, for us, finding land at about $6 a foot is probably like where we really feel comfortable. And at least knowing that you can get mid-teens plus triple net rates is usually where it pencils out for a lot of people. And you just have to move that needle as you find those rental rates plus what's on the ground.
Good luck in Florida finding that $6 a square foot land. That's the super challenge. I have a question for you, Michael. Are you tracking and seeing a flight to quality that shows a rent increase over, like if I'm comping a market, obviously in a lot of these markets, there is no 2024, 25, 26 comps. What am I getting if I go build a new amenity ridden 20-foot high clear height, 12 by 14 foot door versus the guy who's been there for 30, 40 years?
So that is a two-part answer to your question, right? So like you can build the Taj Mahal of flex in Florida or wherever, you're looking at, but you really have to look at who is your customer base here, right? Like who are you targeting? And I say that to say we have a client who built in a oversupplied market. Average rates are about $9 to $11 gross. Disgusting, right? But we said, let's look at your tenant base and who do you need to target here? We did a poll for him. It's all auto users, like repair. And what did he do? He built not the nicest flex. It looked very similar to all of his other product. That's very, I would say, B plus. And he's got a little bit of showroom, but he built to the market and what the market did not have, which was smaller units. And then he did drive-through doors, 12 by 14s, and you could drive cars straight in and through to the side yard. So that's who he targeted. And if that's what you're seeing in your market, you have to figure out, okay, who am I looking for here? What is the biggest, amount of X tenant, right? Because like you can get some discount retail tenants to move out of their space that they're in. If you're looking at, oh, well, auto isn't my target, but there's a ton of guys that don't need to go pay, like your fitness users,
$28 a square foot.
Exactly. They don't need to pay that, and they're just driven on memberships. And so you don't have to really build something really nice for that specific tenant, because what is that tenant doing? Maybe if they're in a town that has decent weather, they won't need that HVAC, but some are hardcore. They don't want HVAC. They want their tenant or their customer base to sweat, right? But then if you're here in Texas, they actually still have swamp fans in a lot of these fitness spaces, but it's because they don't want to pay for that. And here in Texas, it's $35 plus triple nets on the low end. And new construction, I'm starting to see $40, $45 plus $15 to $20 triple net here.
For retail.
Yeah. So there's a huge cost savings for these fitness users or commissary kitchens. We've had a guy that, he just makes sausages all day, and that's what he mass distributes. I've seen empanada factories in flex space because these guys are they're just getting it shipped. Somebody comes, picks it up, and then, there's no reason to be in some type of retail. But if you can build that nicer flex where, hey, I have more parking than your average flex park, right? And so now I'm going to come in. I can not disrupt the park operations because I've allotted for parking for my tenants. So hopefully that answers your question, but it's not about how fancy you can make these look, because we've seen guys build these at $150 a square foot, 28 feet clear, single slant. And the same developer built one more basic, $100 a square foot all in, from a mile from each other. They both sold for $185 a square foot.
Love it.
Just for perspective.
Yep, that's perfect perspective. Yeah, not every dollar you spend extra on building it is gonna net on the back end.
Yeah. And it was relatively the same. They all like security gate was probably one of the most, that was the one thing in common that they had. He had 18-foot clear on the $100 square foot one, but the office finish out was the same. The only thing that 28-foot single slant had was a mezzanine up top and a little bit more office space, but the other ones had smaller units. So he was 2,000 to 2,500 versus the other one that was 3,000 to 3,500. So it is very, very tenant market driven for these.
Love it.
So that's a great segue. Amenities, mezzanines, how do those outdoor storage, how does that affect rent? And are they worth the investment?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I forgot to mention that deal that was overbuilt in that area, that developer that built the drive-throughs. So his rents ended up being $14 to $16 modified gross. So when 9 to 11 is what's in that market, and we usually would never advise anybody to build there, but he went ahead, figured out who his customer base was, and that was his rent delta, is a $5 to $6 delta on rents per square foot. So we've seen this also in there's another one that we just completed. It was in Florida. Gentleman added 900 square foot units, but he had that mezzanine space and he was able to get 16 with mezzanines, but he was targeting more man cave, luxury auto, condo style, right? And that mezzanine is almost like the divorced dad style hangout is what we call it. And so having that amenity, they see that as, hey, I can play poker up here. I can bring the guys over. I can make this my office space. It's, well worth having these things if the market demands it, right? Where, usually, no, sorry, his rates were 20. He was going to get 16 if he did not add that. And then he had security gate, higher clear heights, and full HVAC. And full HVAC is pretty important too, just depending on where you're at. But that's another thing that you can also amortize into your rate if needed.
Anyone have any other questions?
One thing that's also pretty important that we've seen that a lot of people miss out on is having these spaces ready to go. These tenants move very quickly, so having a showroom model suite is very key, and showing everything that you can add on and the delivery time for these guys, because they're looking 2 months out, maybe 3 at the most. But that is key to having the success of leasability, because once you have some momentum and you start getting those guys in there, the faster they can get in there, the sooner you can go ahead and turn around that space. And I say that because there's a pretty big window washing company here. They would have never moved into one of our clients' spaces because they had built out their whole training facility in the flex warehouse. So they're training people how to climb skyscrapers on the side of buildings with the structure they built in their flex space that they had to get climate controlled. But what they had was, hey, we need parking for our trucks. We don't need them in here. We need people in here learning how to clean windows, but we need to park these cars in the back. So there was a flex building here, building A and then building B. In between building A and B, there's a fence between both that had Bluetooth in and out access, where they're charging was $75 to $100 for each space, and that's where they park their fleet of vehicles, and then they come in and train how to climb the buildings there.
Great. I think we're close to the end of our time. Michael, we appreciate having you. You want to give a 1-minute blurb? I think you've earned it after talking to us on what you guys do and how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm one of the partners here, Cody, Austin, Jacob. We've got Wayne who runs all the feasibility studies. To get in touch with us, it's very easy. flexparksusa.com or flexbusinessparks.com. My direct cell is 817-501-0024. And you can email me anytime, Michael at flexparks, PARKS, send me an email with the site. I'll drop it into our World Engine. I will get you in the queue. It takes us about 3 to 5 days, depending on how many are in there. We do about 30 a week, just so you guys know. So we work outside of Texas quite a bit. And once we get that back, we'll schedule a call with you to figure out where's this market, where is it going, and is it worth a study? We grade each site on the success that it potentially has, and we'll go into details of, what we could do to maybe make this different than what's existing in this market. So feel free to just call or text anytime, and my to-do list is my inbox, so I will get to you. Just let me know if I didn't see your email. Feel free to text me, and I'll make sure that we let you know where it's at.
Hey, Will, Dave Clark, I know we're out of time, but real quickly, I was talking with a flex developer, and he showed me a model of his project. It was like to scale with little cars and boats that he could take with him as a marketing tool, which I thought was really cool because they could visualize their boat in there or their, whatever. And then he also uses Starlink, which seemed pretty nifty. He just had his Starlink upload, device there on the top of the facility, and it was just a sort of a seamless sort of way to get internet. It's all in the cloud.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to
Great tools.
share that.
Appreciate that. Well, Michael, I will stick Michael's information in the community as well, so you guys have it if you didn't get to write it down. I'll also stick this call video in there as well. So don't be shy. Send Michael your deals. They love looking at deals. It's interesting. I sent him a deal thinking I was going to build kind of showroom level blacks, and they came back and said, no, this is an efficient model market, right? You don't overbuild for this particular market. So, I mean, you guys have some good information that could save you a lot of dollars. So don't be shy. Reach out to them, use them as a resource. Anyway, I appreciate it, guys. And next week we have a fun one, marketing with Facebook and Google with Jessica Johnson. I think she's a director of marketing. Thaddeus introduced me to her with the storage group, and I think she's going to have, one of the things we have is how do I lease these, right? I think that's the next thing after determining rents is how do I get these full? And so, we've talked about CoStar and some of the, Crexy and LoopNet and all that. I think I'm a big proponent of Facebook Marketplace. So I think next week's going to be a great call. So I look forward to seeing all of you there, and I appreciate seeing the same faces every week. It's really, really cool.
Way better looking than Tran.
Well, I didn't want to. Tran just spent half hour with us. I didn't want to shoot him down.
That's his avatar anyway. That's not really him.
Don't feel bad for Michael. I'm sure his family is doing her nails at some place, so he's making out.
Wow.
I know more. I know more about the nail industry than I want to.
I couldn't resist. I'll have to apologize to Jessica when I see her next week. It's too funny. Anyway,
I
appreciate
y'all, and we'll see you next week.
We'll have a great one. Thank you, brother.
Thanks. Cheers.